Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Welcome to the Erin Molan Show, wherever you are around the world. It is always so wonderful to have your company. Thank you so much for choosing to spend whatever time it is with us. The longer, the better, clearly. But you know, you do you. We appreciate it, whatever you can spare. We like to reward you for that loyalty and that commitment to our show with amazing guests. And I'll tell you who I have on in just a second. But before I do, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you follow the podcast. Make sure you put in a review. And I'm not asking you to put in a flattering one. Just put in an honest one. And most of you watching, I assume, are fans. So that should be fairly nice, I would assume. But either way, get involved, get engaged. We love how much you guys do that already, and please do it even more. Share it with people you know. There is no one else doing what we are doing here. And you guys are right at the forefront of that. Elon Musk and his mother May loved. Okay, they liked it, but I know that deep inside, if there was a love button on X, they would have pressed that. They liked our segment from last week. So you guys are really on board something special. If you value the opinion of Elon Musk, and love him or hate him, he's got incredible taste, doesn't he? In presidents he wants to endorse, in business opportunities, clearly, he has good taste. So we value you as much as we value Elon Musk's like on X. So thank you so much for watching, listening, however you do it. My guest today, Alex Witkoff. Yes, the son of Steve Witkoff, Trump's special envoy who is traveling the world, doing peace deals. And regardless of whether you are a fan of how they go about it, they are getting results. And regardless of whether or not you are a fan that someone who has had a business background and has business partnerships is doing these kind of negotiations, they're getting results. And I made this point as well during the peace deal in the Middle East. There are elements, of course, that I'm not particularly fond of when it comes to dealings with nations that I see as not being on our side, if I can put it politely, particularly when they harbour terrorists, but that is another story. But I understand that there is a need for dialogue, and if that dialogue can result in hostages being freed, regardless of who is engaging in it, and regardless of their other dealings, and maybe the reason they are getting success in this is because of other dealings they've had in the private sector, then I am okay with it. It's a means to an end. As long as your country is not compromising its core values, its integrity. I think sometimes the world is a big, bad, ugly place. You got to get in there and you got to get stuff done. I put all of this to Alex, by the way. We talk about him, who he is as a person outside of his dad's shadow, what he wants to achieve, why he has taken up the call from Donald Trump to do some really special work. He tells us all about that. Talks about the loss of his brother from a drug overdose and the way that that shaped his family and his father. He also talks about the headlines in the media and the accusations that get thrown his family's way regarding conflicts of interest, etc. He answers all of it. This is a wide-ranging conversation. And I tell you what, I left it going, I really like this guy. He actually comes across as a very decent, very genuine person who cares deeply about lots of things. And that doesn't mean that he doesn't care deeply about business. I mean, a lot of people do. They're not mutually exclusive. So what I would say to you is watch it, listen to it in its entirety, and make up your own mind. I think you'll be really pleasantly surprised if you're a little bit skeptical, or you'll be reassured if you are already a fan. And the relationship he has with the hostages as well, I think, is really special. So I cannot wait to bring that to you. In tomorrow's episode, I'll cover the entire conference that's going on in Doha at the moment. If you missed my interview with the Qatari opposition leader, it's the episode before, so make sure you look it up. It is must watch, must listen, must share. This is a perspective that doesn't get heard. It doesn't get told because the consequences of it are pretty dire. We cover all of that, so make sure you have a listen, have a watch there. But I will say this off the back of some commentary on X that says, but guys, you've got to admit, even if you're critical of Tucker Carlson and his commentary in recent times, his anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, even though he denies it so clearly is, pro-Arab states commentary, the crowd loved him there, guys, and they hated Hillary. So come on, that's got to tell you, like, isn't Tucker right? No! Of course they love him there. Of course these conferences filled with the people in charge love him. He's doing their bidding. He is single-handedly whitewashing their entire operation to Americans and to young Americans. Of course they love him, Scoop. That shouldn't surprise anyone. Well, oh, guys, I was a little bit kind of unsure about Tucker, but watching him in Doha and the crowd really lapping up what he was saying, you're right, he must be onto something. No. And Hillary Clinton, wow, do I have a million things to say that are critical about what she has said and done. She is phenomenal in this space. Phenomenal. And her husband is as well. So, sorry, but when people attack me, I look at who they cheer for. And when I see who they cheer for, it doesn't touch the sides. I could not care less. And I suspect that Hillary, having not received a standing ovation in Doha because she basically dropped truth bombs, would be a badge of honour. I would suspect. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us get into this conversation. I don't want you to miss a thing. I want to give you as much time as possible. Please enjoy this deep dive with Alex Witkoff. Alex Witkoff, thank you so very much for joining us here on the Erin Molan Show. It's such an honour to have you.
Well, thank you for having me. This is my first podcast, so it's a great honor to be doing it with you.
Well, that is very special, very special. I did someone's first ever English media interview yesterday, so I feel like I'm doing a week of first. So this is a good thing. Thank you for choosing us.
Well, it's for Sharon. I love everything you do. You've been so outspoken and so strong on so many issues. And then I think coincidentally, you were in Bal Harbor with our mutual friend Tila Falick, so everything just came together.
It did. I said, put in a good word for me, please. And she clearly did. So I thank her very much. I want to get into the things that I'm very passionate about and the things I know you're very passionate about a little bit later. But I want to start by just talking about you as a person, not as the son of someone very famous, not as someone who is very famous himself. But what is your earliest childhood memory? What do you remember from those kind of young formative years?
So we grew up in a family that's really about the classic American dream. My dad was the son of a coat manufacturer, didn't have much. He worked odd jobs, whether it was driving taxis, ice cream trucks, whatever it took to get ahead and create an opportunity for us and our family. My mom sacrificed a lot. She was a lawyer, sacrificed a lot to build our family as well. And slowly but surely, from a lawyer, is actually quite funny because in those age, every parent wanted their kid to either be a doctor, lawyer, or accountant. So my grandparents were very happy because my dad was one of those. But then he risked it all with a small loan. His father, who's an amazing guy, unfortunately we lost him when I was just 13, but he loaned him the money to start his own real estate business, just $20,000. And it's quite crazy because today you can barely build a fence for $20,000. But then he was able to piece together enough to buy his first building. And, and our family was all about working, building the American dream. It's an amazing country, America, and it affords so much opportunity for everyone. As we became more successful, charity was everything in our family. Whether it's Thanksgiving dinners, we had, people homeless or people who were less fortunate than ourselves. We never forgot where we came from. So that really informs a lot of what I care about, a lot of the causes I care about, a lot of the humanitarian causes I care about, because for us, when you have so many great blessings, that gives you a huge opportunity to get back to help other people.
I love that. I think particularly when you're young, you need to be exposed to trauma and to people's pain to understand your own privilege. I think what I mean by that is I spent 7 years in Indonesia, speak the language fluently. It's an incredible country. But as a young person, as a 7-8-year-old, I saw leprosy, I saw beggars, I saw real poverty on a scale that I would never see in Australia. And that shaped so much of what I care so deeply about. Whereas a lot of kids in a lot of countries don't get exposed to that, particularly if they're privileged. So I love that your family, whilst, yes, your dad earned every cent and he made his own dream and your family made their own dream, he was still really, and your mum as well, I'm sure, no doubt, was still adamant that you would help and you would reach out to those less fortunate. That sounds like it was a big part of it.
100%. Our Thanksgivings involved going to soup kitchens. For us, There's no greater reward than being able to help other people. I mean, I think the deepest thing that afflicted our family, as we've spoken about, but I lost my brother when I was 19 to drug overdose. My brother was an amazing person. He was super close. I'm a middle child, one of three. Fortunately, he just never felt comfortable in his own skin. He never felt smart enough. He, grew up overweight. He never felt like he fit in his own body. And for us, that was a really big turning point because as terrible, that was a earth-shattering moment for our family. There's many families that still face that same issue. I mean, 27 million Americans have a drug abuse disorder. It's the number one killer of Americans 18 to 45. It kills way more people than homicides or, certain other issues. It's a huge issue in this country, and it destroys American families. It destroys, American lives. And to us, that's been a huge calling to help other families so they don't have to suffer through that same pain.
I'm so sorry it's heartbreaking. There's no words for that kind of loss. How did that change you as a person? And how did your mum and dad in particular, because as a mother, the thought of losing a child is unbearable in every way, shape or form. How did they cope with that and learn to find, joy again?
Look, there's no there's no perfect formula. There's no book. There's no perfect recipe for when you lose someone that unexpected. He was only 22 when we lost him. And at the time, actually, he was in a rehabilitation center in California with 24/7 care. So at that point, right, when someone has 24/7 care, we gave him, you would never think something like that would happen because they're constantly being watched. But one time he was able to get out, and it was just an unfortunate set of circumstances. So I remember when I first got told, hearing my dad weeping, and it was unusual for him to weep, and it was just a total shock to the body. And I think the number one thing I learned from that is this concept. Actually, my grandmother told me this when she lost my grandfather, is this idea of learning to live with someone mentally, even when they can't be with you physically. So just because someone, leaves this world, this idea of learning they can still live with you and the stories you tell about them, that what you do to honor their memory. Consequently, we've done, 2 large initiatives to honor his memory. And we always feel like we're not doing enough because we love him so much and we always want to do what we can to honor him. We started a big center in his honor at Mount Sinai Hospital in Miami Beach to help homeless people and interdict the root causes of homelessness, which is commonly, whether it's, drugs or, mental disorders and so forth. So we did that to honor his name. We donated, to the Institute Contemporary of Miami to do a music studio in his honor because Andrew loved music. He loved to play the guitar and the drums. So we're constantly doing stuff to keep his memory alive. And, even when someone's not there with you physically, they're still there in the stories you tell about them, everything you do to honor their memory, in your discussions about them. And that was probably the biggest learning I had, is to really let someone live with you, even though they're not here with you physically.
I love that so much. There was a young girl, I'm an ambassador for bowel cancer, and there's a young girl who lost her life, and her dad said, people die twice, once when they take their final breath and the second time when people stop saying their name. And I love that because your brother will never die twice under your watch. And that's a really beautiful thing. I really love that. I also think I lost my dad a couple of years ago, and the pain of losing him, it's such a privilege to feel so much pain at his loss, because if I felt less pain, he would have been less. And you wouldn't want that, right? So there's all these ways that help you cope.
100%. I think, look, time helps heal all wounds, even though, the words we say or the lessons we learned today, we can talk about them so fluently. It just takes time, right? Because, to lose someone who you're used to seeing every day, who you love so much and care about so much, and then to wake up one day and realize they're gone, right? It's just a total shock to the system. And, to find the right ways to cope with it and to move forward, it fully takes time. And it took time for us all to kind of learn lessons and learn to deal with it the best you can.
What drives you? Clearly, a lot of empathy, which I'm learning as we speak. You obviously have a drive to be successful, which you are. What keeps you going day in, day out?
Look, I've always, for me, I think there's always a balance between, of course, I have strong professional interest. We have a great real estate business that I've been in for 30 years. We're super active in Florida. We have, two very large projects on Miami Beach, Shore Club and Ocean Terrace that are selling out successfully. A few great golf communities, Shell Bay in Miami Beach, Dutchman's Pipe in West Palm Beach and the Belgrove Resort, and a large project we're undertaking downtown Miami.
So you're
And
not that
still,
busy, is what you're telling me, Alex.
and then we have a few. We just opened the fight in New York, but and then we have our crypto business, World Liberty Financial, and USD1, our stable coin, which is all off to a great start. But for us, I like to balance that with also the great enjoyment from philanthropic causes and humanitarian causes. So we're very involved in charitable organizations. I joined the board of the charity United Hatzalah, which founded by a great guy by the name of Eli Beer, who helps provide
Yes.
emergency ambulatory care to people in need in Israel. I'm also was appointed, thankfully, by President Trump to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, which I think is a terrific institution with a great director, Sarah Bloomfield, who's done a terrific job, and really bringing huge awareness to what happened in the Holocaust and using those horrors to form on, the terrible anti-Semitism we're all witnessing today. I've spent so much time with the hostages and heard their pain. And to me, that's become a very important issue of mine, is the anti-Semitism that we've all seen and experienced really explode post October 7th in a way a lot of people just haven't seen in many, many, many decades.
Did you ever think, as someone who would have been fully aware of what had happened in the past, obviously the Holocaust being the main event and this persecution of Jewish people, did you ever think for a second growing up that you would ever see anything that resembled that, not just in what occurred on October 7, which was utterly horrific, but in some ways worse, the reaction of the world to what happened on October 7?
No, it's quite frightening. I grew up actually more reformed, and October 7th, I think, was a big wake up call for many people because they saw the pure evil that happened on that day, that terrorist attack where 1,200 people were killed, where 250 plus were taken captive. I mean, to equate that in terms in America, it'd be the equivalent of 40,000 Americans dying, 8,500 being taken captive. It was just incomprehensible what happened on that day, the pure evil of that terrorism. And that actually inspired me to be more in touch with my faith and my religion. I now wear a Star of David necklace every day now, which in certain places actually people are scared to wear today. But Miami, which I think has been the best place in America right now to be Jewish, now everyone feels very comfortable with it. That really inspired me to be more in touch with my faith. I changed my diet a little bit. I studied Torah. I have a few great rabbis that I study with regularly. Rabbi Goldschmidt from Altnoy Synagogue, an amazing guy, actually. He started his own, we talk about, what it takes. We hear people to start their own business or to start anything from scratch, right? So much harder than something that already exists. And he literally, on his own volition, started a modern Orthodox shul on 70th between Park and Madison in New York City with expensive real estate costs, and was able to start it literally from nothing. And he's been a great voice. And a few other rabbis, Zvi Boyarsky from LA, who has a great Aleph Institute. But I really think October 7th changed a lot of Jews, and it realized how the evils of the world, how small the Jewish population is. We're just 0.2% of the world's population. And it inspired a lot of people to be much more connected with their faith.
As someone in this space, you know as well that it comes at a cost when you speak out publicly. And it's insanity, because when you break it down, and I say to people, just point out what element of me condemning Islamic extremism and terrorism and standing up for the innocent victims of that is controversial. But for some people it is. Why is it worth paying a price? And what price do you pay for standing up and fighting for your people?
Look, I think the most obvious thing to talk about is the mainstream media, which I think has been so left and weaponized against many people who are pro-Israel, who don't share a purely left-leaning view. We've all seen that. But I think the scariest thing I've seen recently is this assassination culture that's been glorified. And as much as people want to talk about it as a political issue, right? They tried, President Trump, they tried to assassinate him twice. We saw what happened with Charlie Kirk, and we also saw what happened when they tried to burn burned down the home of Governor Josh Shapiro. But it's not just the political side, it's actually on the corporate side, right? We saw what happened with Luigi Mangione, who shot the CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson. And I have no doubt that people are, angry about the healthcare costs rising in the country under the Biden years and the issues that have happened as a result of him not figuring that out. And but to just kill someone because they're CEO, they're walking to a conference. He's a father. He's a hardworking person. Just because you don't agree with the actions of his company, he wasn't a violent person. He wasn't carrying a gun. He wasn't threatening anyone. And then to see the reactions of people with this "Free Luigi" becoming a slogan, people, painting him as some sort of a hero on the far left because he killed someone in cold blood. I mean, it's so disturbing. And then, we even saw what happened. Well, it wasn't the main reason for the murder, as we know, when there was this shooting on Park Avenue and 4 people died, including the CEO of Blackstone's Real Estate Income Trust, Wesley Patner. I happen to not have known her personally, but she lived in my mom's building on the Upper East Side. She was one of the founding members of our shul Altnoy that I belonged to. And I know she was a woman of immense philanthropy, and she was a great mother. She was a great business leader. And because people are upset about, rising rents in this country from a lot of the inflation that happened under Biden between 21 and 2024, principally, that is an issue and does need to be addressed. But that's not a reason to glorify the murder of an innocent person who is a philanthropic person, a mother, and so forth. And to me, that's the scariest part of what's really happened over the past few years in our country, because it's not just about politicians. There's this glorification of murder of people who they think represent, some sort of business problem that they don't agree with, if they represent Israel in a way they don't agree with politically, whatever the issue is. That's just, and we even see online, like someone wrote on X the other day that they hope my brother and I die from fentanyl-laced cocaine. I mean, there's no excuse for wishing death on other innocent people.
No, it is utterly appalling. It's a cesspit in so many ways. And you're right in that there's been a shift. I think that kind of rhetoric has existed for a fair while, but we're seeing an uptick in people acting on it in real life. It's terrifying. Do you worry about your own safety? Do you worry about your father's in particular, given how high profile his role is?
For sure, who couldn't be under this environment, right? I mean, I think anyone, whether they're outspoken on certain topics like anti-Semitism or they're for Israel today or certain other topics, now it's even with, if you're in the housing sector, given rising rents and people's frustrations with that, or the healthcare sector. I mean, I think it's not just politics, as I said, it's, clearly we're seeing it across the corporate sector as well. And there's a lot of people who are very angry, which I get, right? There are, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, right? President Trump's only been in office for under a year. And I think he's had a remarkable year.
Yeah.
When I see this I talk to so many rabbis, I talk to so many Jewish people, and they all say, thank God, because they would be scared to live in this country if he didn't win that election. I mean, what he's done. I mean, I went to the University of Pennsylvania, and when I went, it was totally different than the Penn I see today. I mean, where people are walking up and down the Locust Walk right after October 7th and calling from the river to the sea, which calls from the death of Jews from the river to the sea on college campuses. We saw it also at Harvard. We saw it also at Columbia. We saw it at all these schools. Jews felt unsafe. And this isn't, and we saw people like Liz McGill or Claudine Gay go in front of Congress and say, well, it depends on the context if that's acceptable. As long as you're not specifically saying to someone you think they should die, but you're just generally talking about people at large, a population should die, that's deemed acceptable. I mean, no other group, no women group, no minority group, no, the LGBT community, it would never be acceptable for any of them to be, talked like that on college campuses, yet they thought it was fine to talk about Jews in that way. And thank God for President Trump, who went into these college campuses and really cleaned up, because that's unacceptable. But for him, and Elise Stefanik was great on that issue in Congress, but
Yeah.
She is stellar, and President Trump was unbelievable, and but for him, and I see the same thing with the hostages. I hear them say all the time. I actually saw a few of them. They're visiting in Miami this week. Noah Argamani, Aviatar
Yeah.
David, and Guy Gilboa Dalal, Avintan Or, and they all say, "Thank God for President Trump and that administration, because but for them, we would not be out and we would not have our freedom."
I had Prime Minister Netanyahu on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I said to him in one of my group chats, someone had said, Trump is the greatest gift to the Jewish people since Moses, and he tended to agree. I think he had another couple of suggestions, but I'd throw in there, like let's talk about what your father has done in this space, and I can only imagine the overwhelming emotion that you feel is pride. You are meeting with people that your father played a key, if not the key role in ensuring their release. How does that feel? I mean, most people are proud of their parents, but that must sit in a very special way within you.
Oh, my dad and I are incredibly close, and I'm incredibly proud of him. Beyond, all the blessings we've had in this world and his great, professional achievements, there's no greater mitzvah than being able to help save a life and play a role in helping other people achieve freedom, save their life, etc. And I'm so proud of the role he played. And I spend a lot of time with the hostages on a personal level. Obviously, I'm fully in the private sector, but I've heard all the stories. I've heard, obviously, we've all heard people like Guy Gilboa Dalal talk about his sexual abuse. We've heard people like Keith Siegel talk about them, shaving his genitals in front of other people. We've heard all of them talk about the starvation that occurred, being fed 300 calories a day or less, being deprived of water, lacking sanitation. We all saw the horrific videos of Aviatar David having to dig his own grave and that his family had to bear witness to. I mean, the conditions were unimaginable. Avina Tanor, I don't think, saw another person who wasn't a terrorist for over 2 years. He was, chained into a cage for a lot of that time. The stories are just horrific. And thank God for President Trump's directive when he said all hell will break loose if Hamas does not release those hostages, and the pressure he applied to make sure he secured the freedom for them all. And my dad and Jared Kushner just were relentless. I mean, both of them are incredible and both incredibly smart, incredibly driven, incredibly tactful. And, with President Trump's directive and the amazing team he's put in place, I think Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been unbelievable as a Secretary of
Phenomenal.
State and a great
Yeah.
defender of freedom in the world. I think Vice President Vance has been unbelievable vice president. I even just saw, a poll came out that said his approval ratings were the highest of one of the highest of any politicians right now. He's
Wow.
amazing. The whole team is great, and they both did a great job. My dad, Jared Kushner, and I'm very proud of the role my dad played in helping under the Trump administration, helping secure the freedom for so many people, and not just even in Israel, right under President Trump's directive, he flew to secure the freedom of Mark Fogel, an American who was doing hard labor in Russia for many years, and he played a huge role in helping secure his freedom as well.
What do you make of, and you mentioned the absolute utter failings of the media and mainstream media, and I spend most of my shows each week pointing out the absolute hypocrisy and how they've just lost their moral compass entirely. How does it make you feel when they have pot shots, when they take cracks and they talk about business interests and they try and infer that there's something else at play with your father other than a desire to help?
Well, first off, my dad has no conflicts of interest. He stepped away fully from our company. He dedicates 100% of his time to the job that President Trump appointed him to. My brother and I run our company. He has nothing to do with it. So he's fully aligning with White House ethic guidelines and divestiture guidelines, and 100% following by everything. But unfortunately, I think the trust of the mainstream media is at an all-time low. I think I've read it was at 28%.
Well,
Decades
that's
ago, it used to
generous.
be at
That's
70%.
generous.
and it keeps falling. And then that's why people are flocking to podcasts like yours, to X, and to all forms of media because they operate with innuendos. I mean, every article I seem to read now about anyone in the administration or anyone in politics seems to have an anonymous source, or an
It's
anonymous
the
source
same
said
as
this.
you. They write the same things about you, and it's anonymous sources, and it's speculative, and it's the headline is so misleading.
Exactly. They work with headlines. Frequently, the actual body of what the article doesn't match the headline. And then their only corroborating source is anonymous, right? Oh,
Yeah.
anonymous source. It's
That
just
anonymous must be super busy. It must be exhausting. He is everywhere. Everywhere.
exactly. It almost feels as if many of the times, right, the anonymous source is used when they don't have actual evidence to back the claim. So I think, unfortunately for the media, they've taken it so far with a lot of the biasness that people just don't carry much weight to some of these articles today.
How does your mum handle it all? Is she my mum? And look, we are like in public life. My dad was a major general and an Australian senator, so in a smaller kind of fishbowl essentially. But mum was always the one that, when my dad was going off about something, or was, mum was always the one that was always a bit more worried about things around. Is your mum a bit like that? Is she kind of, or is she all in?
Well, look, I think everyone in my family is, stepped up in a big way. For my dad to do all the great things he's doing for this world under President Trump, and we're so proud of him. And so we've all stepped up, my brother and I, in the business, and everyone just supports him wholeheartedly. And we're all very proud because he's done such great things. The president was proud of all the work he's done, particularly for the Jewish people, for Israel. It's just been truly incredible to see everything he's achieved in such a short period of time. I remember during the election period last year, right? It was just a little bit over a year today, and you still had many of those hostages still in Israel. I remember going to October 7th events where we were still, Noah Argamani and people of the sorts were still fighting for the freedom of their loved ones. Eli David was fighting for the freedom of his brother, and to see all of them get released just shortly after President Trump came into office, it's just truly incredible. And another topic, as I mentioned, that's truly near and dear to my heart is drug addiction. And it was amazing just over the past few days to see President Trump sign into office billions of dollars to support drug rehabilitation and addiction recovery. When he came into office in 2017, he made the opioid crisis a public health emergency, which was just incredible. And he's labeled these cartels as foreign terrorist organizations who have been smuggling drugs illegally across the border, principally fentanyl. And, these drugs are killing American families. And it's devastating to see this impact across so many families. He's really made that a serious issue to make sure, as I mentioned earlier, the number one killer of Americans 18 to 45 is drugs, and 10% of American adults have a drug abuse disorder, and it's a really serious epidemic. And that's one of the key things I applaud President Trump for taking a leadership issue on.
I love that. See, something that really frustrates me, and I'm not in your position of having immense kind of financial success. Maybe one day that will come, but there's this mentality that we shame people for it when the vast majority, or maybe not the vast majority, but a fair chunk of them use it to do so much good in the world. So much good. The amount of good that your family do with the wealth that you've generated. You've gone through some examples. Do you think there's this attitude of, is it tall poppy syndrome? What do you think it is?
Well, look, I think, to me, I think there's plenty of people who have achieved success and have used that opportunity to get back to others. I was blown away by the gift I even just saw just a few days ago, Michael Dell giving, I think it was $6.5 billion to,
Crazy.
for financial aid for those less fortunate, to allow them to invest and invest
And then I saw people were negative because it was something to do with Trump. And they were like, oh, well, that's nice. But, oh, Donald Trump, what the hell? It's such a great example of how, you just don't take it seriously, right?
100%. I don't think there's anything to say about that, but that it's just an amazing deed he did, right? To give that. And I think, those, we need to invest in fellow Americans, right? And we need to help everyone move along, right? And I think that's amazing what he did. And I think everyone has a responsibility to help others. I mean, it's impossible for any one person to tackle all the world's issues, whether it's hunger, whether it's drug addiction, whether it's poverty. But we all have I think, a civic duty to help the best we can in whatever way we can to help other people.
I love that. Wrapping up, because I know I've taken so much of your time, I'd love to know down the track, what kind of legacy do you want to have left as yourself and in any way? And will we see ever a political tilt from you, Alex? You seem to tick many, many boxes in that space. I don't know if you're that stupid to go into politics, but you might be.
So I'm a part of this organization called Young Presidents Organization. And part of it is this exercise we did is, what would your 86-year-old self say to your current self? So this idea of really thinking about your life holistically, like you said, and into the future, and asking your younger self, like, what legacy would you want to leave behind? Because I think so many people float through life today, and they just kind of go day by day, but they don't think about the larger picture. Like, what does this all mean? What do you want it to be at the end? And I've always thought about that. And for me, I think what it kept getting to is I want to, make the world a better place, help those who can't help themselves. For me right now, the things I'm most passionate about are anti-Semitism and drug addiction, because they're the two things I personally have experienced in a very, very fulsome way. But I have no doubt by the time I'm 86, it's still many years away, there'll be other things that pop up that really, pique my interest and motivate me to help. And to me, that's really what I'd want my legacy to be. And from a politics perspective, right now, I just 100% focused on being on the private sector. I love what I do. I love our company. I love what all we're accomplishing in real estate. Our crypto business is doing great. And separately, the opportunity to use those blessings to help other people on the issues that I'm really passionate about.
I love that so much. I want to thank you so much for joining us here. Thank you for being so generous, so open, so honest. I really appreciate it. Just on that offering to help people, if you could please put in a good word for me on this show with your father, Jared. I've been annoying Josh Kushner and still hasn't delivered. Trump would be amazing. Elon Musk, if you've got contacts, anyone in that game, please pass them on and put in a good word.
Well, you do a great show, so it's not going to be hard to compliment you.
Bless you. You're amazing. Thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me.
Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you follow the podcast. Make sure you put in a review. And I'm not asking you to put in a flattering one. Just put in an honest one. And most of you watching, I assume, are fans, so that should be fairly nice, I would assume. But either way, get involved, get engaged. We love how much you guys do that already, and please do it even more. Share it with people you know. There is no one else doing what we are doing here.
It's so interesting that you grew up in Indonesia. Wow. I think for those of us who live here in the United States, we know nothing about Indonesia. I think is it a president or a prime minister?
President Prabowo.
Yeah, I think their president is trying to maybe come across more as a moderate Muslim country. Yeah. And I know that President Trump has been trying to bring him into the Abraham Accords, and it's, who knows, God willing, this will happen.
Absolutely.
But given that you live there, can you just describe your thoughts of Indonesia? I mean, it's majority Muslim. Is it 87% Muslim?
Absolutely. Majority Muslim. And I would say moderate Muslims for the most part. Devout Muslims, absolutely. You can be moderate and you can be devout. And they've done an incredible thing. And this is the point that I make. And people say my voice is powerful in this space because I'm not Jewish, I'm not Israeli. Muslim voices are missing from this conversation. There is the odd one here and there, and they are amazing. They are amazing. But what we need to suddenly see is every Muslim in the world who does not believe in what Hamas did on October 7 must come out and use their voice. And they will say to you privately, they will say to me privately, I was in Indonesia 2 weeks ago. I go there quite often, and they will say, we hate Islamic extremism more than anyone. But we can't really, if we...
Why? Why can't they speak out?
It doesn't fly. Look, there are countries where speaking out will get you killed. Indonesia is not one of those countries. But there is a fear. there is still a fear that you will be shunned by family and friends. On a really basic, I ask everyone. I'm a pain in the butt when I go anywhere. I want to know how people feel, and a driver from the airport, I'll ask him, and he'll say, no, it's awful. But what they've done, and this is the irony when it comes to the West and when it comes to Australia taking in thousands of people from Gaza. Indonesia, world's largest Islamic nation, have all but eradicated Islamic extremism. Mm-hmm. Same as Egypt. Muslim Brotherhood banned. Yet, I mean, they're not renowned for being Dalia Ziada, this incredible activist, had to flee because she condemned Hamas and stood by Israel's right to defend themselves. She had to flee from Egypt, but they've banned the Muslim Brotherhood. Yet you look around other countries in the West who won't. Indonesia have gone so serious and hard on fighting terrorism in their own country. It's kind of a two-pronged attack. Widodo was a president prior to President Prabowo, and he did two focuses essentially: tough laws, and not just tough laws because, as we can see, they're useless if you don't actually apply them and if you don't follow through and use all the things that are available to you. So he changed that, and this de-radicalization of youth. They focus so much on that in Indonesia. And the stats are phenomenal in regards to how few terrorist incidents there now are. Again, in the world's largest Islamic nation. Prabowo as well has come in, and that has continued. So I think we look at countries who know this danger and this risk better than we do in the West.
The risk of radical Islam.
Absolutely. But then we think, oh no, and they just are fine, come in, it's ridiculous for us not to be able to at least say, they know it better than us, and they're doing this, this, and this, zero tolerance. Why are we in the West welcoming in people who come from countries where you sit in a classroom and you are told it is okay to kill someone because of what God they believe in?